guys understand the difference between good and bad debt, I hope you understand how important it is to make sure that your credit is good, okay? And all this does is it just gives you more options. So what I've got on the screen here is just a snapshot. This is taken from Equifax, and it talks a little bit about some of the areas that I looked at when you are being assessed for credit, okay? So this is the credit report explained. So I'm just going to talk through these individually and kind of point out some of the key things in there. The very first one then, just on your left-hand side, talks about the electoral roll. So this really looks at, you would get a letter come through the door at the beginning of every year. And if you're not the homeowner, it might come through with your parents' name or whoever runs the house, basically. And it will ask who's over 18 and who's eligible to vote. Now, what you ideally want to do is you want to make sure that you're on this electoral roll, because what that does is that will help when creditors are looking for you, that will help them identify where you actually live. So when it comes down to electoral roll, you get the best scores if you've been on it for 3 years or longer. So if you are somebody who maybe moves around a lot, so let's say, for argument's sake, when I was at university, I used to change address every year because I lived in student accommodation. That doesn't look good on a credit report. So what I would always do is I would make sure that all of my bills would go to my mum's address. And it just shows then that I've been at my mum's address for longer than 3 years. So whenever anyone can assess me, it shows that I've got a permanent address there. So I know that's not always possible for people, but the key thing here is where you can, try and be on one address for 3 years or longer. And even if you know that you're someone who moves around, have, if you can, one permanent address, and then you can register more than one address on your credit report. So you can have one as a temporary address, of which might be the place that you move around a lot, okay? So that's the first one, which is the electoral roll. The second one, the credit agreements, this will basically show everything that you've ever taken out credit-wise. So it will have things like any credit cards you've got, any mobile phone bills, mortgages, personal loans, your bank details and your overdraft details, everything will be within here. And when you go into it in more detail, which I do on the next slide, it will show you every single month and any months that you've paid on time, any months you've paid late, if you've got any defaults on there as well. And again, I'll explain those a little bit more in a bit. So it's really important to make sure that this is checked and that's up to date as well. Now, the next one then, the court information. This is really if someone's taking you to court. So when you saw the term CCJs on one of the previous slides, if you get a CCJ, it will be listed within here. And what it essentially means is you've taken out credit on something, you've not paid it to the point where whoever's borrowed you the money has had to send you a letter to say that they're going to take you to court. So you really don't want this to be highlighted, because if any creditor sees that highlighted, they're not going to borrow you any money at all because you look like somebody who won't pay. So just to clarify as well, you can see that all of these are green at the moment, but if they wasn't, so let's say that one of these was bad, then it will be shown on whatever color. So you'll see, as an example, if it was poor or very poor, it would be red. You'll see that one of these would be red, okay? And you know that that's the area you need to focus on. So to keep going then, you've got financial associates. So this could be quite interesting, because what it does is it will link you with people who you live with or you're tied to in some type of way. So let's say, for argument's sake, you haven't taken out any credit, or you've got good credit, but then you live at home with your brother and your brother's got really bad credit and he's a little bit reckless. Sometimes that will show up on the same report if you live at the same address. So what you can do with that is you can contact the agency and say, you know, I want to be disassociated with my brother or anyone else in the household, so that they measure you just on you and not on the house alone. And that could be the same again if maybe you was a married couple and, you know, someone's, I don't know, run off with the credit card or whatever it may be. You can get yourself disassociated with somebody through the financial associates. The gone away records is basically if you're somebody who took out credit, you lived somewhere, and then you moved house before you paid the credit. So it will be registered as a gone away record, which means that you've gone away from the address without paying. So if you're somebody who kind of feels like you could take credit and then run off, they always know it will show up on your report, okay? And it will be underneath that area. Now the CFAS one, that one could be a little bit unfair sometimes, but what this basically is it's an agency who checks for fraud. So if you are somebody who's ever been a victim of identity fraud, so somebody's got your details and they've tried to open credit in your name, then it will be registered, like if they get caught, then it will be registered under this CFAS. And it stands for something like credit and fraud security or something like that. And what that basically does is this will be highlighted on your report just to say to the people that you're borrowing, please do extra checks because this might not be the right person. It might be the fraudster. So, so you will have this highlighted and this will stay on your credit report for 1 whole year, which is a pain sometimes because it can stop you from getting credit or slow you down a little bit. But it's also for your protection as well, so that you don't get identity frauded. The last couple bits then, so you've got your searches. This one is quite important as well. And if anybody's trying to search for you, so even things like an insurance company or, you know, a new bank account, they will do a search on you just to see, once again, if you're the person you say you are, because you can see your name, your date of birth and everything on this report. To do a search like that is considered a light search. So it doesn't overly affect your score, but they don't like you to have too many searches on your account. If you have lots, then this would change to amber. So you've got the light search, but then you've got the hard search. And the hard search is more something like a credit application. So again, if you was applying for a personal loan, a credit card, a mortgage, anything like that, it will come up on your system as a hard search. Now, they only want you to have up to 3 of these in the space of 1 year. If you have more than 3, then that will affect your credit. And it just makes you look to them like you're somebody who's just kind of recklessly applying for everything that you can to get credit. I think with a lot of this, that's not always the case, but that's how it looks to them. And so they will start to think twice before borrowing to you. And the last couple then, so the notice of correction, if you know that something's happened that's affected your credit report, you can put a little note on there to let borrowers know. So as an example, once again, where maybe you've got that reckless brother at home, you could write a little note on here to say, you know, please do not consider my brother when applying for this mobile phone contract or whatever it may be. So they can come in here, they can read the information and then be like, oh, okay, it's not him, it's the brother, so let's give him the contract or whatever it may be. So you could just write your own little note. And then the final one, this is more for homeowners. If you've got a property, it will just show how much your property is worth. And from a credit company's point of view, they will kind of see, you know, if you've got some money in your property, then that makes you be a little bit lower risk to them because they know they've got somewhere they can get that money back from if you don't pay your bills, okay? So I hope all of that made sense. I know that was quite a lot of information there, but I'll keep going. So I just want to talk next a little bit about your credit score. So when all of these are green, this will make your credit score green as well. And your credit score is, it starts really from poor and it goes up to excellent. Depending upon which agency you use, the scores are slightly different. So with Equitrax, the highest score is 600, and that's why this falls into the excellent category. Whereas something like Experian, they go up to 999. So something like this score in Experian would be probably fair. And I don't know if I made it clear, but depending upon your credit score, that will determine whether you can get money borrowed to you and also what interest rate you would get it as well. And you can probably see on here, which is mad, but the UK average is 380, which means it's in the fair category. So as a nation, we're not doing that great with credit. So there we go. So the next thing then, I just wanted to talk a little bit about credit agreements and what that looks like. So this is, I probably should have actually created my name out on here, but this is actually one of mine. And this is a credit card that I've had. And I just wanted really to show you the types of information you can see on a credit report, okay? So the very first thing then, it will show you, or the most important things on here, it will show you what your current balance is. So how much, if I had made a purchase on this card, let's say I bought some shopping from Tesco's or whatever for £100, that would show up here. Underneath it shows the credit limit. So this is how much I'm allowed to borrow based on my credit. So that's a good credit score, or a good credit limit, I should say. And ideally, you want your credit limits to be as high as possible. But at the same time, you do need to be quite a disciplined person, or you can end up getting yourself in debt if you don't know when to stop spending, okay? So, but having a good, a high credit limit is a good thing, and I'll explain why on the next slide, okay? So this here shows that this is settled, which basically means that this card is now closed. I don't use it anymore. And over here, you can see the date it was settled. So I stopped using it in 2019. Now down here, what this shows you is how my payment history has been. So once again, you can see I've been quite the ideal credit person here and everything's green. But let's say for argument's sake, there was a month where I paid late, that would be shown on here. And it will show as, there'll be a little sign on here. It wouldn't be green, it'll be red, and there'll be a little sign on here to say, it might just have an X to say that it's been paid late. If I've got any defaults, then it will show as a D. Now, just to explain to you what a default is, a default is if you, once again, haven't paid your bill, then what they would do is they will default your account. And what that means is they will put a notification on your credit, which lasts for 6 years, to say that this is somebody who doesn't pay their bills. So it means that anybody who looks for you, so when I say that, a borrower, if they're checking your report, they're going to see that you've got defaults on your account, and that makes you a really untrustworthy person to borrow to. So they probably wouldn't borrow to you at all. So you really want to make sure that you don't have any defaults on your account. A lot of people don't know that, one, defaults exist, and two, they don't realize that they last for so long. So sometimes, you know, if I talk about myself, when I was younger, you know, I might just not pay a bill. I didn't realize the impact of it. So I could be at uni and maybe, I don't know, there's a new laptop that I want, or I should pay my T-Mobile bill. I might just go for the new laptop and think to myself, do you know what? I'll pay that bill at some point, or I'll pay it when my student loan comes in 3 months, not realizing the impact that that had on my score. And then later on down the line, just trying to apply for something, you know, for something important, getting declined by the company, and then realizing I've got a default on here because I've not paid my T-Mobile bill. And in my head, I'm thinking, I actually could have paid that bill. You know, like I had the money, but I chose to get the laptop or whatever it was. So, you know, that then doesn't go for 6 years. So if you imagine, you know, me at uni at, you know, 18, 19, you know, by the time I'm kind of 25, right, yeah, you know, 24, 25, and I'm trying to look for things like properties, or I'm trying to get cars and stuff like that, and I can't get anything based upon that one decision I made of not paying my T-Mobile bill, you know. So it's really important just to make sure that you keep up to date with your credit. So I wanted to talk a little bit about credit card utilization, and not a lot of people know this. I realized recently, even a lot of adults don't know this, but another thing that you'll see on your credit score is how far your credit utilization is. And the idea is to try and keep this as low as possible. Now, what this basically is it's the amount that you're allowed to borrow versus the amount that you actually borrowed. So as an example, you saw on the last slide that the credit limit was nine grand. So if I had borrowed £90 out of that, then my credit card utilization would be 1%. So what you find that a lot of people do without realizing is they get rid of credit cards because they think to themselves that they don't use them. But when they do that, they're lowering their amount that the credit people can see that they can borrow, and therefore it makes their utilization higher. So I'll put an example on here just to try and explain what I'm trying to say, okay? But this is the scenario then. So if I have two credit cards, one of them has a limit of £200 on it, and another one has a limit of £1,000 on it. So every month, I spend roughly about £100 on my card that has £200 limit. And I also pay it back every month as well. So I do my food shop with Tesco's, just say, and I pay it back when I get paid from work. So because I'm only using the card, £200 card, everyone says to me, you may as well just get rid of the £1,000 card. What's the point of having two credit cards if you're not really using one? Now, the reason why you shouldn't get rid of that is because if you do, it's going to make your utilization go up. So to clarify, if I got rid of one, and I only had the £200 available, so just at the bottom here, and I'm spending £100, I'm spending half of what's available to me. So that means that my utilization will be 50%. So that's really high. And in order to have good credit, you want your utilization to be under 30%, okay? So the difference being that if I keep both of the cards, I've now got £1,200 available to me. And because I'm only spending £100 of it, my utilization is only 8.5%. So that makes me look on paper like a much better credit-worthy person, because it looks like she can spend all this money, but she isn't. So that means she could be trusted with money. So I don't really know the logic, but that's what the logic basically is. So my advice then is, if you've got options to have a higher overdraft or have a higher credit card limit and things like that, once you're disciplined, and I do say once you're disciplined, it's not a bad idea to keep things as high as possible, because it makes you look better if you don't spend all of what's available to you, okay?